These are the thoughts of a dying girl as the sirens take her away. I deserve it. Someone who looks like me should have never fallen for someone as beautiful as you. It hurts. I can't breathe. Make it stop. Just let me die. The EMT's voice telling her to hang on and that they were almost there slowly faded. And this girl was fine with it because nothing good happened when she was alive. She prayed to God that in the next life she'd be more beautiful. Yumiko Koda woke up to her parents calling her name, feeling relieved that she survived, but not expecting her to ask them who they were. This girl didn't know a girl named Yumiko, much less these people she'd never seen before. Apparently, Yumiko had tried a self-end attempt, but she had no idea why she'd do that. She asked for a mirror, but the parents didn't keep any, since Yumiko hated mirrors. So, the mother handed over her phone instead, telling her not to break it like last time. And seeing her face, Yumiko gushed over how cute she was. The parents were in shock as she marveled over her porcelain skin, cute, sparkly, puppy-like eyes, and her cherry-like lips. She compared herself to Snow White waking up from slumber. Pause. Wait a minute, hold up. I'm not the type of person who likes commenting on people's appearances, but let me get this straight. So fat, ugly girl dies and wants to be reincarnated as someone more beautiful, then gets reincarnated as another fat girl, except blonde, and she thinks she's beautiful? What in the shoujo delulu is this? The doctor explained her condition as retrograde amnesia, likely due to the brain damage caused by her fall. This is real, by the way. Actually happened to an old friend of mine who tried the same thing. Her mother felt grief, worried about what the neighbors would think. Her father told his wife not to say that though, and to be more thoughtful of Yumiko's suffering. It was a miracle she survived falling 4 stories, and she was elated. She could still talk and was physically fine. She even had family, so she wasn't alone. They were so surprised to see their daughter was so cheerful. Her room was messy, but she thought it was nice. Her wardrobe could use some sprucing up, but she still thought it was cute. She remembered there were no mirrors, since Yumiko didn't like them, and went through her phone to try to get more clues. She found a file that read, "My happy place," and it contained all photos of the same person. She couldn't believe this was the kind of person she was before. A knock on the door. Her mother asked when she was going back to work, and with Yumiko learning she was 24 years old, she was happy to hear she was an adult, and perhaps, possibly, a woman in love, or maybe a career-minded professional woman. She decided she was going back to work the next day. On her way in the morning, she spotted a park that she was compelled to go through. She had no idea why though, and she'd spot the boy on her phone, panting behind a bush. She asked if they'd met before, only to find out they were complete strangers. He told her not to worry, considering he always got like this before work. So, in an attempt to help him, she offered water she cupped in her hands from a fountain. But of course, who would want that? She tried telling him he should take the day off, and used herself being on the verge of death as an example. Since she was in tip-top shape now, she could see the dark circles around his eyes, and told him to get some sleep. Otherwise, he'd let his pretty face go to waste. He was at a loss, but then chuckled, replying she was funny. This made her flush, and she was certain he was fine now, since he had the energy to flirt. But she couldn't flirt with him right now, since she had to go to work. Running off, she wondered why her face was so warm. Another man called our handsome male lead vice president, and now he was all fine. In the office, everyone was stunned because Yumiko seemed so different. She explained she completely lost her memory and had no clue who she was. So, Chief Hiroki Maizono, head of her office, the planning division, would help her whenever she needed. She'd look at her hand, seeing a large amount of sweat, and wondered if she was nervous for some reason. Getting led by her colleague Saki, Yumiko learned she never really spoke up much. It made her wonder if she was a nuisance previously, but she'd decide to remain positive regardless. During a meeting, the topic was about summer-exclusive potato chips, and this made her stomach rumble. Her cohorts were all short on ideas, and so was she. She went through her bag and pulled out an idea notebook, and turning the page from one filled with many ideas was another with a lot of self-loathing. It read things like, "Someone fat like me planning sweets? What a joke. Worthless. Pigs shouldn't talk." She couldn't believe she hated herself so much, and wondered if she lived her entire life putting herself down. But no more. she got up to give her idea. Summer meant watermelons, shaved ice, and ramune soda. So she suggested colorful flavored powder be made from those and put onto chips. Two of her male colleagues thought that sounded gross, and I'm with them. But Saki liked it. Even though the idea would be polarizing, it'd blow up on social media. With the meeting ending, Yumiko looked back at her notes and felt bad for her past self, but also thanked her for her ideas, because this meeting was a success. She then wrote new affirming words, reading, "Don't worry, it's okay, you're a genius." She then get a phone call and was shocked to hear it was Officer Tanigawa from the Aoyama Police Department. She was concerned they might know about her secret photos, but turns out regarding her case, they initially presumed it was a self-end attempt, but now had reason to believe it was attempted murder. They found her fingerprints on the railing of the emergency staircase at the scene, but the placement didn't suggest she jumped on her own. They wanted to hear more from her later. She wondered who would try to kill her. Was the man from this morning a secret undercover spy? Was he trying to eliminate her because she had pictures of him? Or perhaps were there men fighting over her love? Oh wait, maybe it was a woman in love with one of those men who tried to kill her out of jealousy. That aside, she was too hungry to keep thinking about this. At lunch break, the guys were swarming to have lunch with Saki. Yumiko would break through the crowd to thank her for the support during the meeting today. And with Saki saying she just wanted to back her up, since she was usually quiet, the guys gushed over her beauty and great personality, even calling her an angel. However, Yumiko thought they were talking about her, even though they weren't. She quickly pulled Saki to have lunch with her, and Yumiko's lunch size was everything you'd expect. Like, this would be a bit much, even for a 180-pound guy like myself. She was so voracious, she stole another one of her coworkers' croquettes. One of them asked if this is why she was so fat, but she wouldn't put it that way, replying that she was able to maintain her proportions because she gets plenty to eat. Saki would then say she wished she could be like Yumiko, but her face gets so round if she overeats. Is this some kind of backhanded womanly diss? Yumiko was obliviously positive, explaining women become even more attractive with a bit of extra weight, and this made all the guys laugh. Continuing to work, Yumiko was getting sleepy, so Saki offered things and techniques to stay awake. Going through her desk with notebooks, Saki would look through Yumiko's notes in a sort of empty and disturbing way. And when the chief would tell Yumiko he decided to go with her idea for the chips, Saki seemed not so happy, and Yumiko picked up on this. By evening time, Yumiko was thinking about the boys from this morning. She wanted to buy some new, fresh clothes. In case they met again, she assumed the old her was in love with him, but perhaps didn't have the confidence to talk to him. Who she was now knew just what to do. The next morning, she'd search for him in her new dress, and finding him on a bench, he'd get up to greet her. She tried pulling water she bought for him out of her bag, but turns out, he brought his own this time. His smile was so pretty, she wanted it as her home screen. The two made small talk, and we learned he stops by here every morning. He'd learned that she lost her memory recently, and even though this shocked him, she was bright and positive, saying every day was like an adventure now. He found her to be such a joy, and told her he was hoping they could become friends. Ending their meeting, he said, "Let's meet again." She was in a daze over his words at work. Unfortunately, she forgot to ask his name, but thought it was probably more romantic that way. When Saki would come to greet her, Yumiko tried to bring up her pitch for a new product, but for some reason, Saki would run away. While in the toilet, she wondered if she had said something wrong. She'd then overhear her coworkers gossiping, saying, "Apparently, that fat girl from Section 1 got her idea approved." And even hearing she was more outgoing now because of her memory loss, that it was too bad she couldn't change being ugly and fat. But at least she was better than Pick-Me Saki. Supposedly, Pick-Me Saki's ideas have never been approved. Man, are girls this mean privately? Let me know in the comments. Yumiko burst out of the stall, wiggled her way out since she was too fat to walk straight through the door. She scolded the two, asking what was wrong with Saki being popular with men. She worked both hard at her job and appearance, and Yumiko was confident Saki would turn in a great idea in no time. Then, Yumiko started to glaze herself, saying her face and body were gifted to her by God, and she'd understand why they'd be jealous. But was sure the two of them still had wonderful qualities, and told them to be more confident in themselves. They shrunk back, responding, "Yes, ma'am." But Saki wasn't so happy having heard it all. She uttered to herself, "Who do you think you are? You used to just be a quiet, gloomy, fat girl. You should have stayed that way. Okay, I'm betting she's the murder suspect. Back to work, Yumiko opened her drawer and was shocked to see all her idea notebooks were gone. Hiroki approached Yumiko, asking if everything was ready for her presentation, and she nervously told him it was. As he left, she panicked. What was she supposed to do with only a few hours left? There was no way she could do her pitch without her notebooks. She wondered if they'd been stolen, but suddenly felt proud, understanding why someone would do that. After all, the notebooks were full of wonderful ideas. There she went, making enemies again. That's what she gets for being such a genius. This girl is maximum delulu. The culprit was Saki, who hid the notebooks in a locker. The chief would ask her to help Yumiko with the product materials, and made it clear Yumiko would need her support since she had lost all her memories. Looking grim, Saki asked the chief why he went with Yumiko's idea. The question didn't make sense to him, since she was the one that had said it was a nice idea in the first place. Their team hadn't produced a hit in a while, so he decided to take a crack at Yumiko's crazy idea. With her hands trembling, Saki asked if he went over her own ideas, and he replied he saw them as generic, and that they didn't leave any impression. On her way back, she overheard Yumiko asking their colleagues if they had seen the 10 notebooks. They made fun of her, speculating that she probably ate them. However, with 10 notes missing, it was obvious someone had stolen them. If it were someone in the office, no one would want to work with them. Hearing this, Saki ran away. Yumiko was scrambling, trying to figure out what to do. She hadn't even started on her presentation. She wished Saki was here to help her. Others then came by looking for Saki, and even a call came in for her. But her colleagues had no idea where she was. Her cell phone wasn't going through either. Yumiko then mentioned that Saki had run away when trying to talk to her earlier, but hadn't seen her since then. The chief recalled she looked a bit pale when he had met her, and after bringing up the feedback he gave about Saki's ideas, he told everyone to get back to work. Yumiko would then run around the whole office, looking for Saki, ignoring the 2 coworkers trying to get freaky in the storage room. She couldn't understand why Saki ran off. Was she not feeling well? Or was it because she asked her something at a bad time? Yumiko eventually ran out of the office and into the park. As things stood, she had just met Saki 2 days ago and could hardly keep track of herself. But she couldn't just turn a blind eye on Saki being gone. Soon after, she found Saki sitting alone in the park. Yumiko tried to tell her that everyone was lost without her, but Saki didn't think it made a difference if she was there or not. She assumed Yumiko had even come to berate her. In her anger, she accidentally dropped the bag containing all of Yumiko's notes. Yumiko misunderstood the situation and thought Saki had found the notes for her. Saki asked if she was stupid, and I would have asked the same. She confessed to stealing them from her desk because she felt defeated. No matter how hard she tried or studied, she never got the one thing she wanted most, even though she loved sweets as much as the next person. Despite working at the company for over 2 years, none of Saki's ideas had ever been approved. At first, she thought she and Yumiko were the same and took comfort in that, but it became apparent she was the worthless one. All she could do was smile and do the usual grunt work everyone else could do. Saki handed the notes back to Yumiko and apologized. Yumiko then asked her to come back because she couldn't do the pitch without her. She explained how much Saki had helped her. Even the chief was impressed with her high-quality materials. Yumiko was amazed by her hard work and threatened to throw a fit if she ever called herself worthless again. Saki was so moved by her words, tears began flowing down. As the two walked back hand in hand, Saki pointed out Yumiko's hands were really squishy, like marshmallows, and extremely comforting. With only an hour left, they began working on the presentation. Some guys came asking Saki to grab them a coffee, but she slammed the table, letting them know she was never doing that for anyone again. She would then draft the presentation, while Yumiko worked on her pitch, and with just a minute to spare, they were ready. When the executives arrived, Yumiko was shocked to see the guy she had met at the park. Saki then mentioned to her that he was the vice president. Yumiko tried to say hi, but the guy completely ignored her. She wondered if he was shy, or even worse, was she waving to the wrong person? Afterwards, she began her pitch for the ramune flavored chips and handed out samples for everyone to try. The vice president would try it and say it wasn't good. Though the idea was interesting, he felt the visual impact and flavor came up short. Yumiko didn't take this the wrong way. To her, she took this as the entire idea wasn't garbage. Then, she started delusionally glazing herself for coming up with the idea. The vice president tried to hide his smile, but Yumiko was flushed with emotion as she noticed it. He then gave the team 2 days to come up with improvements. After work, Yumiko and Saki went to a restaurant to celebrate their hard work. Yumiko believed the pitch was a hit, but Saki thought otherwise, especially since they only had 2 days to improve on it. Yumiko believed the vice president must have been promoted at a very young age. She asked if he was the president's son. Saki answered that it was a bit complicated. Back when the VP was in the planning division a few years ago, he and Chief Maizono got along well. However, the president and the vice president weren't related by blood. It turns out that Maizono was married to the president's daughter, and with this, he probably thought he would be the next president. But the current president chose the current VP as his successor, and rumors were speculating that the VP was having an affair with Maizono's wife because she had fallen out of love with him. No one knew how much of it was true, but it was certain the chief and his wife had separated. Ooh, so spicy. Yumiko could hardly believe the man she met at the park would involve himself in an affair. Recalling how different he was today, she couldn't tell which was the real him. She went to the park the following day to get the truth, but she couldn't find him. On her way to the office, she suddenly saw the vice president leaving the planning division. Getting into the office, her colleagues told her that the VP had dropped off something for her, but they wondered what was going on between them. Yumiko, on the other hand, believed the vice president was rooting for her, but Saki thought he was up to something. Opening the box, it turned out to be bottles of ramune. The VP was much nicer than they thought. When Yutaka spilled a drink on the floor, Yumiko suddenly got an idea. Then, she dragged Yuki off to the food development research room. They began experimenting on the ramune-flavored chips and would work themselves into the night. And by morning, they had a totally brand new product. During the next pitch, the VP took a bite of the chip and was instantly captivated by its flavor. After discussing with the other executives, he decided to move the idea into production. Afterwards, Yumiko ran out to meet the vice president. He apologized for not being in the park the previous day, explaining that he went to buy the ramune. It was quite difficult for him to find them. He had to check 5 different stores. But thanks to looking for it, he didn't suffer an episode. He thanked Yumiko for this, explaining her bright personality and optimism made him want to root for her. He would leave, hoping to see her at the park later. Yumiko was excited to know he really was the man from the park, and he was so nice. She loved him. She knew her gut was right. There was no way he was involved in an affair, but there was still so much she didn't know about him. Then, soon after, a scruff-looking man approached Yumiko, saying he'd been looking for her, and she wondered who he was. The man introduced himself as Detective Minami from the Aoyama Police Department. He explained that he came to see her, since she hadn't come in for questioning. That's when she recalled the police had called, suspecting someone was trying to murder her. Minami's subordinate, Detective Tanigawa, then ran in to meet up with them, after which Minami suggested they go somewhere else to talk. At a cafe, he explained they had a reason to believe someone was motivated by deep-rooted malice to kill her. The incident had occurred around 4 p.m. The scene was an abandoned hotel, unrelated to her residence or work. It was a remote location away from the city, and there were also no witnesses. Minami also noted she didn't particularly have any close friends or romantic partners. Yumiko reminded them she had lost her memories, but she brought out one of her notebooks for them to go through. In there, it said a lot about how much she loved sweets. She mentioned the bad words that were written by her old self, probably due to lack of self-confidence, and found it shameful that someone like herself, with all this beauty and talent, would think like that. Minami was somewhat flabbergasted hearing this. As for her friends at work, she saw all of them as good people. Saki was a good rival, but they were also friends who grabbed drinks together. Shigemori was the cheerful guy who lifted everyone's spirits, and Hosoi was always looking out for her like the sensitive person he was. However, Chief Maizono was a bit standoffish to her, but he was very passionate about his work. Minami then mentioned he saw her with the vice president at the entrance of their office, and he asked about what they were talking about. Yumiko answered that it was about the pitch she had presented. He then brought up the rumors regarding the vice president and Maizono's wife, even suspecting he may have made a pass at Yumiko. Yumiko didn't believe those rumors. She saw the vice president as a good person. Besides, it was only natural he'd make a pass at her. She was the ideal woman, after all. Minami felt she was simply naive, speculating Saki may be using her. He insisted that she didn't know what her colleagues were really like. She didn't understand why he was being so mean. But Minami simply teased her for taking people at face value. Fed up with him, Yumiko stormed out of the cafe furiously. Minami would stop her to return her notebook, and while doing that, he asked if she was serious about being beautiful and ideal. Because of course, by conventional standards, Yumiko wasn't. With her saying she was serious, he called her crazy and started talking down on her, calling her overweight as well. He also said she was hardly beautiful and felt she probably knew herself better before she lost her memory. Yumiko hated him so much, she snatched her notebook and quickly left. Entering the office, her colleagues threw her a mini celebration for helping them get their first product in a while. This made Yumiko even more sure that she had great colleagues. There was no way they were bad people. As Shigemori brought out a knife, Yumiko suddenly recalled how her past self felt no one needed her around, and how much she hated her life. Meanwhile, Minami was going through her phone, which she had stolen without her knowing. He'd find the album filled with the vice president's pictures, making him wonder if Yumiko really had amnesia. He then asked Tanigawa to return the phone and keep an eye on the vice president, while he kept an eye on him. Fatso. Yes, he called her that. Back home, Yumiko was frantically searching for her phone, unable to remember where she had kept it. For a brief second, she suspected Saki might have stolen it, but slapped herself for thinking such a thing. Yumiko felt she's been acting strange since she had that weird vision. She assumed she had forgotten her phone, and decided to return to the office before anyone would find the album. Yumiko was unable to find it, and by the next day, she decided to search the office again. Kisuke approached her, seeing that she was lost in thought. Then, they began talking about the product planning, and she told him about how everyone was so supportive and kind. He then said people acted that way because of her. Kisuke felt like she gave people superpower, and he too found himself looking forward to seeing her. Yumiko felt the same way. She wished she could stay here forever. She loved him so much, and that's why she wanted to try harder to learn about herself and her past, no matter how scary it might be. Unknown to them, Minami was spying on them behind a bush. Tanigawa would meet up with him, showing the pictures he took of Kisuke. At 9 p.m. last night, the vice president had dinner with Maizono's wife, after which they went to a hotel room together. Tanigawa called him a scumbag with a pretty face. After drinking some water, Yumiko noticed the vice president looked locked in. He had been more intentional about staying hydrated since they first met. It had become part of his routine. Thanks to Yumiko, he could breathe easier. Since becoming vice president, his symptoms had gotten worse. Kisuke knew people thought of him as a cold-hearted devil, but deep inside, he was just a scared chicken who couldn't deal with pressure. But when he talked to Yumiko, he forgot about his episodes. Sparkling with excitement, she offered him to talk to her all he wanted. She was very happy to help. She boasted of being able to cure illnesses now. Being like the sun, she was able to brighten everyone's day, and she swore to blow away any pressure that came Kisuke's way. In the office, Saki heard Yumiko had lost her phone and tried calling it, but it wasn't going through. Yumiko couldn't believe she ever suspected Saki, especially when she's been nothing but nice. While nearly crushing Saki with a hug, the front desk called and told Yumiko that she had a visitor. At the entrance, she'd meet Tanigawa, who returned her phone. Later at the park, he apologized, explaining it was Minami who actually stole it. Minami thought she was lying about her amnesia, and that's why they looked through the phone and found the album with Kisuke's pictures. Hearing this, Yumiko panicked, thinking she might get arrested. She began fumbling her words, but Tanigawa assured her he wasn't here to arrest her. He just wanted to know why she was secretly taking pictures of Kisuke. And of course, she didn't know, but was sure she'd be caught with all the beauty oozing out of her. Tanigawa then showed an old picture of her, which he had found in their employment directory. Yumiko had no idea she was looking at her old self. When he said it was her, she couldn't believe she'd ever be that gloomy. Yumiko saw her old self as a total stranger and gave Tanigawa back the picture. The file he was holding suddenly fell, spilling the secret pictures of Kisuke and Maizono's wife. Looking at the pictures, Yumiko felt she'd seen her before. Then, she asked Tanigawa why he had these pictures. He told her it was Minami's orders, and they suspected VP Kisuke might be the one who pushed her off the building. Yumiko defended the VP with all her might, letting Tanigawa know he would never do that. Then, she stormed off, without knowing Minami was listening to the whole conversation. In the bathroom, Yumiko was plagued by the visions of her old self. She tried fighting and ran out of the bathroom, not wanting to lose herself. She'd run through Kisuke at the entrance, and he'd chase after her. By the way, Kisuke mistakes her for a wild boar, but then goes, "That wasn't a boar, it was Yumiko." When he caught up to her, she told him to stay back, because she felt she was returning to her old self. But he told her she was fine. Looking at Yumiko with his dreamy eyes, he let her know she was the same as always. For a split second, she saw something, but hadn't gained back any of her memories. Then, she realized she was too scared to remember her past. Yumiko told Kisuke how she saw her old self as a total stranger. Apparently, He had seen the old Yumiko before. When he heard of the accident, he checked the employment directory, and during her pitch, he could barely recognize it was the same Yumiko. Still, he felt that even if her memories came back, it wouldn't change who she was now, nor would it change their friendship. Yumiko was moved by his words. Kisuke's assistant came running, telling him a meeting was about to start. As he left, he mentioned that he was looking forward to Yumiko's product launch. She didn't realize he'd taken some time out of an important meeting. It made her more certain that he couldn't be the killer. The answer had to be in her memories, and although it would be scary unlocking the truth, she'd remain her cute self no matter what. Meanwhile, at an apartment where a delivery man came with a package for Rikako, Maizono's wife, she panicked, begging for Kisuke to come save her. At the office the next day, Yumiko noticed everyone seemed to be on edge. Saki explained there was a chance they wouldn't be able to make the ramune chips. Their usual potato farm got hit hard by a typhoon, and the sales team hadn't had any luck finding another source. Even their regular chips were at risk, let alone the new launch. Chief Maizono decided he'd be heading out to Hokkaido for a few days, and since this was her pitch, Yumiko decided to go with him, thinking they'd need her brains and beauty for negotiations. While Yumiko packed her things, Saki warned her to be cautious, since the chief had separated from his wife. Now Yumiko was worried, believing any man who spent a night with her would have trouble resisting. She thought she was so beautiful, although Saki's expression said otherwise. Maizono and Kisuke would come across each other in the hall. The vice president requested to follow them to Hokkaido, but Maizono simply ignored him and walked off. However, Yumiko assured Kisuke that she would bring back so much good news, he'd want to make her his secretary. Soon after, she and Maizono arrived at the potato farm, just in time for the harvest. The old farmer let the chief know he had no plans to sell his potatoes, no matter how much they begged. Maizono asked him to reconsider, stating they could make a product unlike anything before. However, the farmer didn't want his potatoes to become junk food. He didn't like the way people were always nitpicky about their shape and size. He felt his potatoes were perfect just the way they were, and even though Maizono promised they wouldn't nitpick, the farmer doubted it. Looking at Yumiko, he mistook her for Yoshiko, his beloved wild boar. She introduced herself, boasting about being bright like the sun. Yumiko suddenly smelled something delicious. It happened to be freshly steamed potatoes. Seeing them, she could tell they were amazing. Before the farmer could take a bite, Yumiko's stomach growled, interrupting him, and she was drooling shamelessly. She explained not having lunch earlier, so the farmer shared some potatoes with her. Then, she noticed the unique shape of the potatoes and thought they were perfect. One was shaped like a little cloud, and the other like a daruma. She thought they were perfect for her unique chips. Maizono added they were planning on making this a hit product, begging the farmer once more. And so, the farmer agreed to supply the potatoes. At the train station, Maizono told Yumiko to hurry up before the train would leave. She was carrying a ton of items. 2 bags were for the team, while the rest were for herself. She claimed it was costly to maintain a beautiful body like hers. Such was the fate of being born a beautiful woman. On the train, she ate some snacks to relieve tension, but Maizono told her not to celebrate yet, because the hard part was yet to come. Still, he appreciated her help. That farmer was the only one they could find, and he was adamant about refusing their offer. Yumiko gloated about her beauty and brains helping with the negotiations. Those buttered potatoes were so good, and it was one of her favorites along with fries and potato salad. She then asked the chief what his favorite food was, but suddenly felt she was being too forward. However, Maizono bashfully responded that he liked nikujaga. Yumiko praised him for making a good choice. Hearing that he didn't cook at home, she figured his wife must be a good cook. But Maizono replied it wasn't her forte. His wife had bandages all over her finger the first time she had tried to make him nikujaga. Though it ended up too salty, he thought it was still really good. Yumiko gave a creepy smile, calling it love. And while Maizono and his wife might be separated, she believed the love between them might still be there. He had such a kind expression earlier. She wondered why he always looked so stern. She tried to get him to smile, but it only made him look weird. She would laugh and call it an awkward smile, just like his wife used to. Yumiko quickly apologized for laughing at her boss, but he said it was fine. She then realized that he hadn't scared her one bit all day, so she felt like this was a good time to tell him. Exiting the train station, she asked the chief not to be so cold to Kisuke, explaining that he looked quite down. She also didn't believe the rumors about the affair and begged him to believe in his wife, insisting there was still love between them. As she left, Maizono recalled the last fight he had with his wife, with her holding a knife saying he deserved to die. He wondered where the love truly was, and believed it was too late to reconcile. The next day, Yumiko was waiting at the park to give Kisuke some ramen noodles. But his secretary would bring a letter from him. Kisuke congratulated her on a job well done and let her know that he'd be a bit busier for a while, so he wouldn't have time to come to the park in the morning. He left his email in case she needed anything. Yumiko would hand over the ramen noodles to the secretary to deliver to Kisuke. She couldn't believe she got Kisuke's email, but decided not to act so soon in order not to seem too forward. Afterwards, Yumiko entered the office with souvenirs from her teammates. She told him that the delicious potatoes were secured, and it would be smooth sailing from here. Shigemori was impressed by her confidence and self-affirmation. It was hard to imagine given her old personality. He was jealous, wondering if his life would change if he hit his head too. However, Sa replied his hair would probably protect him from any head injury. She assumed he wore an afro to hide his baldness, but this only got on his nerves. This was his natural hair, and he didn't appreciate how they made fun of it. Embarrassed that he could never have straight, smooth hair, he ran off crying. Hosoi felt he was acting this way because of the girl he liked. Hearing this, the girls immediately became interested. Morika Nanase from accounting was Shigemori's crush. Apparently, Morika was a fan of a guy with silky smooth hair, which was why Shigemori had been feeling bad lately. So, Yumiko decided to handle this. She would approach Morika, introducing herself as the hit maker from the planning division. Then, she asked what she thought about big hair. At the same time, Shigemori happened to walk by and saw what was happening. Morika apparently didn't seem to mind an afro, so far as it suited the person. Yumiko then asked what her type was, and she responded saying it was the actor Takuma Kusahara, and Kisuke as well. Just as Yumiko was freaked out, Shigemori dragged her away. Back in their office, Saki asked Shigemori what he liked about Morika, and he refused to tell, until Hosoi pointed out it was her voice. Yumiko sparkled, curious to know more. Shigemori recalled the first time he noticed Morika's husky, low voice was when he got an internal call about expenses. Morika called him then, asking about his receipts from various diners. He explained that he was trying stuff that went viral on social media, hoping to find some inspiration. She felt he was very passionate about his work, and to him, it felt like she validated his efforts. Ever since he fell for her kindness, getting to hear her voice on the phone brightened his day. When Shigemori wanted to talk to her in person, that was when he found out about Morika's love for Takuma's silk hair. All his life, Shigemori had been teased about his hair, and he'd been rejected plenty of times because of it. It made him think Morika would laugh at him because of his own hair, so he had never been able to talk to her since. Yumiko tried to encourage him, but Shigemori argued he couldn't do it. He was fine with just being the guy on the other end of the phone. Yumiko kind of understood how he felt, holding back due to a lack of confidence and thinking you couldn't get hurt if you didn't act. But that was all a waste. She believed he had a chance. She told him what Morika thought about afros, and it gave him the resolve to give it a shot. Now, Yumiko just needed to keep Kisuke out of Morika's sight. Later, Morika came looking for Shigemori to ask about a receipt. He'd soon show up behind her, completely iced out. He got 2 rings, 3 chains, 2 bracelets, and sunglasses indoors. He looks like he's trying to go on a rap tour. Seeing the receipt, he told her it was from a girl's bar, while trying to act cool. But she was upset that there was no date on it, because some people did this on purpose to lie about the date. So, she couldn't accept it. Leaving the office, she commented that he was quite different from when he was on the phone, and she was disappointed. Heartbroken and embarrassed, Shigemori started cutting his hair, but his colleagues would stop him. Yumiko grabbed his face, telling him he didn't need to change himself. It was thanks to his hair that he was so easy to spot, and seeing it go would make her sad. She claimed the hair made him unique, and it was his charm point. Feeling better about herself, Shigemori rushed to catch up with Moeka. He humbly apologized, explaining the bar must have forgotten to write down the date, and he was sorry for his brash behavior. After he confessed about having a crush on her after their first phone call, Morika requested to touch his hair. She loved the feel. Then, revealed she'd also been thinking about him too. That day they spoke, she was feeling down about herself, but tried to suck it up because of work. However, Shigemori cheered her up by asking her to check out one of the diners if she needed to feel better. No one from her department even noticed the way she was feeling, which made her more eager to meet him. She'd ask him out to a restaurant, and happily agreed. Back at home, Yumiko was glad that Shigemori stayed true to himself. She couldn't let her own pride get in the way, and didn't need to play games. Being the cute, special woman she was, she decided to send Kisuke an email. Cut the side plot aside. I'm trying to hear more about the Maizona wife situation. Can we get to that? Subscribe to keep up with next week's part. But for now, watch this next video. It's me, ComfyTea. I'll see you all in the next one.